Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. This is our first talk in our spring speaker series, a phrase that I will have to practice saying many times. It's a bit of a tongue twister. And our speaker series this spring is called Building Affordability, and we're talking about affordable housing. We're going to be talking on a number of scales, starting with the closest in, which is our own organization here and our strategic planning goals. And we will end all the way up at the state level with Amy Tomaso. So between now and then, we're going to have 5 total lectures over the next 5 Wednesdays. So feel free to join us for one or all. They will also be recorded. Thank you to Mad River TV for helping us out with some of the recording. And they will be up on our YouTube channel if you'd like to view them later. Also want to highlight that we have a QR code for some donations. We are a nonprofit. We rely heavily on donations, and we welcome your support to sustain this program. And we also have a Standby for Locals program, so if you are in Washington County, if you're a resident of Washington County, you can sign up for that list, and then we occasionally offer courses for 50% off to that list when we have spaces to fill. So feel free to hop on that list. And lastly, I'll introduce Britton Rogers. He's the executive director of Yestermorrow, and he's talking tonight about our strategic planning, which will focus on affordable housing, and he'll tell you much more about that.
You stole my thunder.
And that's it.
Spoiler alert.
But with a Bachelor of Architecture from UT Austin, Britton practiced architecture and environmental design in several firms. After licensing and LEED accreditation, Britton wanted more for the built environment, which led him to pursue a certificate in sustainable building and design at Yestermorrow and a Master of Environmental Design from Yale. He examined urban and landscape history, including the reuse of abandoned buildings and toxic industrial landscapes. After graduating, Britton stayed at Yale to teach advanced design and urban history. In his practice today, Britton focuses on renovations and restorations, as well as designs for gardens and landscapes. He also writes about and photographs urban landscapes, infrastructure, and industrial relics. In addition to his practice and teaching, Britton serves on the board of directors of several community and ecologically focused nonprofit organizations in Vermont and Connecticut. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Britton. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate your being here. I am going to try a new format for a talk tonight. So I'm going to put my slides on autoplay, and then I'm going to be reading, because a lot of what you're hearing tonight is some new material for me to be sharing. Sarah mentioned the subject that we'll be covering, and the whole subject of the speaker series for the whole spring being affordable housing. So our strategic planning process has been intense and is ramping up, and so we're still in kind of draft form of where it's headed, but I wanted to take this opportunity to share, and for myself practice sharing everything that it is we're going to be working on. So again, thank you for being here and being part of this this experiment on my part, but moreover the larger focus of our priority here this spring. So I'm sure most of you know the story of Yestermorrow. Looking around the room, I'm pretty sure everyone here does. John Connell came up here as a student of the design build movement. He looked around at the people who were getting involved up at Prickly Mountain and looked at the creative energy of the valley. He realized there could be a real meeting of the minds, and that meeting could be used to bring more people into the creative thought process. And what better way for humans to assemble and teach and learn than by working with our hands? His goal, and then the goal of Yestermorrow, was to bring together homeowners and people looking to create their own dwellings and combine them with builders and architects, get them all in the same room, able to speak the same language, so that we can all have a conversation. I have a feeling that everyone in this room fits into a category or two of builder, architect, homeowner, or someone interested in creating a home or a dwelling. Many of us, at least those of us who live in a dwelling or want to create our own, there are an especially high number of those who are creating or designing in Warren. I think Warren claims to be the highest number of architects per capita. New Haven, I think, also likes to claim that, but I believe it more about Warren. New Haven, Connecticut, I mean. So anyway, think with your hands is our motto. And I'd say in the age of tech and AI, this is now more true than ever, that human beings need experiential learning. We need deep work. We need focused purpose that comes from learning by doing. So Yestermorrow's mission is Yestermorrow inspires people to create a better, more sustainable world by providing hands-on education that integrates design and craft as a creative, interactive process. I always want to say an iterative process because it's also an iterative one, but our actual mission statement says interactive. I was given the job of introducing this speaker series, which we're calling Building Affordability, to talk about affordable housing efforts near and far, mostly in the Mad River Valley or in Vermont. We thought it would be great to explain how Yestermorrow is going all in on the affordable housing need in our community. So of all the groups I mentioned earlier, architects, builders, home dwellers, and those dreaming of dwelling, there's a category of people that may have left out, and those are the ones who may not have housing, or the ones who are not in a place where they can even think about having housing. Let alone about creating housing. And there are many who can't afford what housing they need, including many people who work in this valley today, including people who work here at Yestermorrow. And so that's where Yestermorrow and our new strategic plan, still in its early stages, as I mentioned, is looking to expand our reach. But I'll get to that in a minute. Affordable housing is a defining crisis of our age. It is a crisis of supply and demand. It's a crisis of class. It's a crisis of location. It's a crisis of accessibility and a crisis of knowledge. It's a crisis of labor and a crisis of ecology and the environment, of family, of small business, of cities, of rural agriculture, and a crisis of resort communities like where we're sitting today. We're all familiar with, and we all have a personal connection to why, how, and when housing affordability has affected us. Anywhere that humans are needed to do work, affordable housing is in crisis. Although it's not always the same crisis. It is still a crisis relative to place. And for us here at Yestermorrow and in the Mad River Valley, the crisis increased significantly after the pandemic and more people left metropolitan areas to live in rural settings. We're all familiar with that story. So what is affordable housing? Housing that someone can pay to live in, can being the operative word, to acquire, to maintain, to operate for a reasonable portion of one's income. And what is a crisis? It's a time of difficulty, a time of trouble or danger. At this point, I would love to introduce the core committee. Yestermorrow's board of directors has several subcommittees that do a lot of the work that Yestermorrow is able to accomplish. And we have a core committee, which I believe was originally convened to work on a master plan for our campus. But then the core committee kind of evolved into any big planning processes that Yestermorrow does. And so right now, the need was in a strategic plan, not so much a physical thing, but more a fundamental meaning for the school thing. Mac Rude, Matt Wolpe, Alex Catazone, Penny Hart, Abby Martin, Gunnar Hubbard, Skosh Norton, Ben Service, Chrissy Bellmeyer, and our newest addition, Sophie Etienne, who's our new development manager here at school, have all been wonderful, wonderful members of the strategic planning, the core committee, and I want to thank them. Erin Miley O'Keefe, our board chair, is also chair of the committee. She's done an amazing amount of work. And then I want to acknowledge a good friend of mine, Paige Ponder of Idea Jar Strategies, who has been a wonderful facilitator and strategic planning consultant for us to make this progress. The core committee started out considering our location here in the Mad River Valley, our relevance to the community, our location in a rural agricultural resort community with a very high cost of living. And of course, we considered what assets we have, including our wonderful repurposed building and our beautiful 38-acre wooded campus, mostly wooded and mostly sloping steeply campus. We considered what we do best. We do basic carpentry and build sheds really well. We build bus stops for VTrans, farm stands and outdoor classrooms, tiny houses, tiny pubs, tiny libraries, tree houses. We turn shipping containers into dwellings. Wow, that timing worked well. And most of all, our semester program produces a small house or an ADU each fall. We wondered, how could we do those things better? And how could we deliver a more effective product, i.e. housing or another structure, and do it more effectively? And in the act of producing more effective buildings, our hands-on learning also becomes more effective. That's, I think, a pivotal thing that we really want to embrace and that we're really, really working to be able to achieve. So students would feel a greater sense of accomplishment, a greater sense of purpose, and a greater relevance by building a better, more effective building type. This feeling would multiply in the people we reach out to, as it would teach our students the skills in design, construction, and craft, and then they could take those out into the world. And then it would also help us craft a better message through those students and through our marketing efforts and fundraising efforts to become a more successful institution. We also considered our values and what matters to Yestermorrow as a school. You heard it in our mission. We want to, as Bill McKibben puts it, we want to counteract the reliance on environmental ruination of cheap oil and the human ruination of cheap labor as one way of thinking about some of our values. We considered how we, as a design build school, can think about what we produce. We looked back to ancient Rome, to Vitruvius, his writings on architecture, where he listed 3 elements necessary for a well-designed building. The architects in the room, I'm sure, have heard this. Probably everyone has, but the 3 elements are firmness, commodity, and delight. Firmness being structural integrity, the ability to hold up to gravity, and I would add to human use and to weather and the elements. Commodity, utility. Does it function the way it needs to? And does it do that with economy, with as little as is needed? And delight. Does it offer a rewarding experience to the user and to the viewer? Does it reward the planet with its existence? I think of Mother Nature as just as important as the other users of a building. Does it delight her? If it delights her, it will provide more delight for the building user in the long run to keep our planet more hospitable for all species. So after we looked at all of that, our values, our assets, our priorities, what we do well, we put it all together. I don't know if anyone else here receives the New York Times morning newsletter, but the very first line of the newsletter this morning was another article about the affordable housing crisis. Home prices are up 60%, it said. I think in some areas it's a lot more than that. A quarter of renters, 12 million households, spend more than half of their income on housing, far beyond the 1/3 level that's considered healthy financially for a household. Some people commute more than 90 minutes to get to work. A lot of statistics just reinforce what we already know, and I think why we're all already here. There are goals across the country to improve this, to change this. There's a lot of consensus that we need more housing. Urban, suburban, rural, blue states, red states, dense areas, sparsely populated areas. It's a universal message for the United States and most of the world. For people who rent, for people who hope to own, entry-level, starter homes, low-cost rentals, homes for the missing middle. Building more housing reduces prices. There's ample evidence, and it's basic economics. It mentioned that local laboratories, this is the New York Times article still, mentioned local laboratories as a place where we can work on regulation and production. Well, it just proved what we've been working on in this strategic planning for quite a while now, that Yestermorrow is perfectly situated to be a local laboratory. We have a little bit of land where we can design and build things. We have a steady supply, and we're hoping to grow that steady supply of human beings to come help us by learning how to build more things, build more buildings. We understand building science. I assume most people in the room know what that is, the moisture and temperature movement through the building envelope, one of our core curriculum areas. We also know how to teach people to choose appropriate building materials for those purposes. So we understand, we build, we teach a wide variety of housing types, ADUs, tiny houses. This was the tiny house that we built for the first year of the semester program in 2011. We've built multifamily, duplexes, triplexes, boarding houses, and beyond. I think it should also just be said that, just breaking it down to the most basic terms, a dwelling, a home, is the most intimately understood form of shelter for the human being. It's a place where we live, where we eat, sleep, bathe, create and raise families, make memories, and increasingly where we work. The making of a dwelling is a complex process. It's full of decisions to be made, and it can be a significant investment. The process of creating a dwelling, from concept to purpose, to how it'll meet the needs of its occupants, to what it will look like, how it will touch the land, how it will perform against water and the elements. These are fundamentals of what we teach at Yestermorrow and fundamentals of decisions that go into making a house. So, to bring all of that together, if all of that was a little bit of a preface, I realize it was going in quite a few different directions, but I hope it gives you a glimpse of all the things we've been studying while we've been undergoing this process, the strategic planning process. Yestermorrow is embarking on a multi-year, multifaceted approach to build more affordable housing. In so doing, our goal is to teach more people to be able to build their own housing and housing for others using our unique teaching model, one that is hands-on, one that requires focus, compromise, resilience, and creativity. We plan to reach more people to be able to spread the knowledge of how to build more housing across the country and the world. We're in the initial phases. As I said, this is all a bit in draft form, but we are in the initial phases of a new strategic plan that focuses our educational offerings to design and build affordable housing units with our students for our community. And our strategic plan aims to improve what, how, and why our students design and build. Our goal is to empower more people to go out into the world to design and build more, to make a difference in the affordable housing crisis. We will need to raise funds, create curriculum, design and construct buildings, foster community, and most of all, increase our own capacity to be able to reach more people that I mentioned, to ensure long-term fiscal sustainability for the school. It's about both the process and the product. It's the process of thinking collaboratively, designing without ego, designing in consensus, learning to build by doing, to teach, and we will be teaching problem solving, we'll be teaching how to work together, and this is the defining problem for the school to solve. The affordable housing crisis, and then the education thereof is this problem to solve. This is a topic of equity and sustainability. The two are intermingled. Our priority is to make buildings that are more affordable for more people and to design them so they can serve as many resources as possible in their construction, as well as use as little energy as possible in their operation. Possibly even generate more energy for themselves than they use, and also that they're healthy for the individuals who live in them. So, Yestermorrow is making plans to design and build an affordable housing model village on campus. It will have examples of creative, beautiful, efficient, sustainable, resilient housing. That housing, our goal is to have it house instructors, staff, students, teaching assistants, apprentices, and possibly local community members. Our current zoning allows us to house people who are here dedicated to our mission. So we won't be housing the general public on our campus, but we hope to house members of our community, members of staff who come here, who are looking for housing, as well as, all the other people that I listed. With this model village, we will demonstrate our capacity to build various types of housing. Tiny houses on wheels that we build already and that you've probably seen a few images of. Modular and panelized construction units. You'll also see a few of all of these types of projects that Yestermorrow and others have built. Some of the images, I should say, up here aren't Yestermorrow. They were either pre-Yestermorrow or their precedents similar to what Yestermorrow is hoping to achieve. Multifamily units, shipping container units, ADUs. We hope to show ways to update, insulate, and save other housing types that maybe already exist on the Vermont landscape. Farmhouses, mobile homes are two examples. Our model village houses will be highly insulated, low carbon consuming buildings, hopefully net zero or better. They'll be resilient, regenerative, renewably powered, healthy for their occupants, minimum impact on the planet to build and to operate. If the greenest buildings are those that are never built, we will make these housing units as green as they can be. We have to build some things to house more people. We've already established that part. So once we've demonstrated our ability to build those units with our model housing village here on campus, we will hope to find community partners to continue to build more, to teach more students and apprentices to build more units off campus. We will need to find pathways to making them affordable, and that will require a lot of research and a lot of buy-in from our partners. Most importantly, because we're a school and our curriculum is our driving force and our mission, this will require a growth in our programming, our curriculum, both in what we offer and to whom we offer it. It will require growth in our facilities. It will require growth in fundraising to be able to achieve more curriculum and more buildings themselves, and to be able to support scholarships and apprenticeships to bring more people here who can't afford to be here otherwise, to offset the cost of being here. So how are we planning to accomplish all this? We're going to be expanding our long-term programs. We already have the shipping container program in the summer and the semester program in the fall. We will, as I mentioned, grow our funding for scholarships and apprenticeships with a lot of fundraising that we're going to be needing to do. It will look like possibly additional semester program partners, possibly bundling courses to help people hone their skills and expertise in an achievable way. It will require training toward job pipelines, from site work classes to design and carpentry classes to building systems classes to weatherization classes and finishing classes, building finishing classes. We will have to add construction and design space here on campus. We'll need places to incubate and iterate these designs. We'll need, in my vision, there's a building that epitomizes our philosophy of design build. It'll be a feedback loop. of hands-on work, designing, building, building, designing, learning from both as you go. As I mentioned, we'll be designing and building a model housing village and then be able to deliver housing for others, such as partnering with affordable housing developers or delivery companies or community members. And it will be about improving our methods of project delivery, our ability to go from pre-design of a project all the way to project completion. In the educational realm, that becomes difficult because our classes are a fixed, finite length of time, and we can't have students stay for another 6 weeks when, supply chain issues have crept in, or, there are problems with the schedule. We also have to have a project teed up before the students get there. So there's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes before the students come, even if the students are doing the design work for their project. So we are probably, very likely, going to be forming a design build group that will be able to take the load off of the office staff to be able to, as I said, get projects from pre-design all the way to project completion with the use of students as much as possible along the way. So that's really the idea. As I said, I've been showing some class projects from Yestermorrow, some precedent projects from others, from Yale, from Rural Studio, from random precedent searches online. These are some of our semester projects that have shown me what we can achieve in a semester. And yeah, that's where we are. I'd be happy to go through the slides more closely if people have questions about what it was they were looking at, or I'd be happy to talk more about kind of where our strategic planning process has gone or how we got there. Are there any questions? Comments? Thoughts? Yep.
So, from personal experience, I know that most politicians, if you look under their shirts, they have a big red button that if you press, they say, housing affordability crisis now, or some sequence of words like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you used housing and affordability throughout the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I heard price once, I think, and I don't recall hearing cost mentioned. And I wonder if you could just kind of distinguish between cost, price, affordability, and any other finer words, that are
Mm-hmm.
more precise words, and how you think about how Yestermorrow will respond to the housing affordability crisis.
Yeah, it's a good question. You're right. I talked about housing production, and I talked about the need for affordable housing, but I didn't necessarily talk about how we're making projects affordable, right? It is a very good question. We are a nonprofit institution, so we do a lot of fundraising, and our goal will be to do a lot more to be able to produce high efficiency buildings, which tend to be more expensive because it requires more material to go in to make it a better insulated, better weatherproofed building. So we're going to be using fundraising, grants, and donations to be able to build the projects that we do here on campus. But from these semester projects that we've put together, we've learned that with our students coming in and doing the work, a lot of the work on the projects, we can deliver projects at quite a much lower affordable, much lower price point than, say, a home builder or as somebody who's paying all their labor. Now, we don't want to exploit our students and all of their free labor to make everything happen. So I think it'll really be in the partnerships with whoever, after we've built the ones here on campus, where do we go from there? Whether it's grants or other things that pay for the high efficiency buildings that hopefully we'll be able to make, with some discounts coming because we are building the buildings with some student work being done. We did a project in 2020, and we were able to do a high efficiency building. It was in the Valley Reporter. Mac was one of the instructors on it. For under $100 a square foot was the material. So it was basically material cost only for the project that we delivered. And right now, projects are easily going to $500 a square foot for a basic market-based project. So, while we can't do 30 of those a year, we can't even do 10 of those a year. I'm hoping even if we can do 3 of those per year, we can start making a dent here in the Valley in truly an affordable threshold. Does that sort of answer your question?
It talks about the affordability of housing affordability. Housing was used frequently in the presentation. Are there other words? Shelter, I usually think of as an architect's term.
Dwelling,
Maybe Maslow
shelter.
likes shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done any analysis of the definition of housing? Or what?
I often say dwelling more than housing because I think of it as, for example, our shipping container program, we're turning a container, the donor who gave us the 4 shipping containers tasked us with turning each container into a single occupant dwelling. So a place for one person to live. And they defined that because they wanted us not to combine shipping containers into a place for a family to live, but to use one single 40-foot long, 8-foot wide, 8-foot tall box to house one person. So, I think the definition of housing, the definition of dwelling, the definition of shelter vary with climate. I think here, temperature, water, sun, you have to think of all the things that we need shelter from in this climate that maybe someone in Utah or Florida doesn't need, or what they need that we don't need. But I would say, temperature regulation, shade, and just, whatever it makes a warm-blooded individual be able to stay alive through the elements, and hopefully support what it means to be a human, conduct life. Some of the stuff I mentioned, what to me being in a dwelling means, having a family, possibly doing work, the different things that we use a house for. Wait for the mic.
It's not exactly a question, but I kind of just want to hear your thoughts on it. And a lot of this conversation is about building more, part of this conversation is about building more affordably and less than $100 a square foot, like you said. A huge part of the affordable housing crisis is people who can't afford to build a house, whether it's $100 a square foot or $500 a square foot. And so, I just wonder if we're thinking about that side of things too. Maybe that's not our place to tap into the conversation. So just thoughts on that.
I think it's a good question, Penny. And, I know you've been involved in some of the conceptualization of all of this. But I think it's easy for us to want to get into those solutions also, is how do we help people afford these things? But one of the things we don't want to do is start to become a housing developer ourselves, to try to find ways to produce housing units for many people, and then get into for whom is it affordable, what is the form of the legal arrangement, are we, is it rental, is it rent to own, is it buy, is it state funded or state supported? We don't want to get into that level of affordable housing management. We want to remain a school, number one, and really focus on learning and teaching the students who come here to help us produce these units, and then demonstrating to others how it can be done, and hopefully sharing that knowledge as much as possible. I'd say every project we embark on, whether it's a community composting project or building a shed or a garden, is not just to be able to enjoy that thing, but to hopefully make other people go out into the world and create it also. But that's, I think, why I emphasize working with partners, is we really hope that there would be a housing coalition or a local housing management agency, or if a town is trying to get into the business of that themselves, or there are a lot of other organizations that are going to be better equipped to answer that question than we are, and we don't claim to be able to do that, or nor do we want to. Does that make sense? Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, it's a huge part of the question, but it's not part of the question we need to get into. And I will just say all of these questions are really helpful for me, because, like I said, this is all in draft, and I love if people don't understand something or think I used a word too much or didn't answer a question that I kept talking about or something. It's great to hear those, because it helps me kind of craft how I'm talking about this.
I do have a couple questions in the chat that I was hoping we could answer.
Sure.
The first one's from Ben Service and says, can you speak more about the 2-story home with the walkout basement? Was that a Yestermorrow project? And my guess is that was the Ben Cheney Crunkle house that Ben is referring to. Ben
Service, part of our core committee also. Thank you for the question, Ben. If it was Ben Cheney's The Crunkle, yes, it was a Yestermorrow semester project. My understanding, I wasn't involved with the semester or the school at that point, but my understanding is the foundation was already there, and then the Yestermorrow semester built the upper level and finished just the upper level, which was a 1-bedroom with a dining room, kitchen, bath, and living space. And then the client, it was a garage / wood shop on the lower level. But Ben, I'm happy to talk more about that offline if you shoot me an email.
Our next question is from Winter. What is Yestermorrow's process to get these incredible projects? i.e., how do you find your clients? How client-driven is your process?
Oh gosh, Winter, that's a really good question. We do get a lot of project inquiries. We have a lot of clients come to us looking for projects. I think we have a lot of people know about Yestermorrow and know basically what it is we do, but maybe not quite sure how we work or what we're typically capable of achieving, or how long that takes, or how much it's going to cost. And so we do get quite a bit of interest, and I knock on wood, we seem to have enough project inquiries to be able to fulfill most of the projects that we want to be able to make. And we're hoping that as we ramp up our production efforts and are able to produce a couple of more per year, that the word will get out and people will know more. And considering the possibility of a design build group, we'll have the capability of producing projects more effectively and hopefully in a faster amount of time, and then be able to deliver those, and then word of mouth will get out. We also have quite a few repeat clients, or students who become clients, or clients who become students, or teachers who become clients, who become students, who become staff members, who become clients again. a whole variety of overlaps. So we do get that. The last part of your question, I think, was, how client-driven are we? Well, as an architect myself, I really love it when we have a client and the students can experience designing for a client, whether it's our collaborative design build intensive, which has also been known as neighborhood design build and community design build and public interest design build. That class works with the client and they deliver a project 2 weeks later. And I really love how important that is for the students to interact with the client and present their design to the client, get feedback, and deliver the building to the client. It's a small building for that 2-week class. For the semester, I also find it to be a very rewarding experience for the students to be able to work with the clients and have that interaction happen. That said, some of our most successful projects, I would say, have been the ones we've done on spec, where we can design it and make it and then sell it, and then we're much more effective at the delivery. It takes out a big unknown, which is working with the client. For students, that can be a big stretch. Even though it's a great educational experience, it also can be stressful and can cause delays. So the answer to how client-driven is our process, I guess I would say yes and.
Britton, if I could also ask you to plug Yestermorrow, or maybe I'll do it now because I'm speaking, yestermorrow.org/projects. You can learn about becoming a client. And then also for folks who are here in person, we have a little pamphlet on becoming a client, so you can find out more about that process and what kind of projects we're looking for. That's
right. We have a variety of projects that we have dialed in very well to how long they're going to take, what's a basic budget on the smaller scale projects like sheds, tiny houses, EDUs, saunas, projects like that. As they get more in depth, it starts to become more of a custom project. But yes, I highly recommend taking a look at our yestermorrow.org/projects or our little pamphlet here. Gosh, I'm getting behind. This is Eli in Asheville. I'm a community mental health counselor in Asheville, North Carolina, and Goddard grad with family in Vermont. You mentioned scholarships. Do you have any specific plans to introduce a program to help those where finances can be a barrier to participation? And then also, what do you see as specific to reducing costs to make housing more affordable? I'll go into that one next. The scholarship question, yes, we've taken a variety of steps already. We've introduced our sliding scale tuition program. So there are opportunities for our short form classes, our weekend to 2-week-long classes. You can enroll at 60%, or 80%, or 100% of tuition, or we also give the option of paying 120 or 140% if you'd like to help someone else in your class to attend the program. For our longer term programs, our certificates, our shipping container, and our semester program, we are working very hard to build our scholarship base and to be able to offer more options. Chrissy just sent a link about some of our financial aid opportunities. We take VSAC grants, we take AmeriCorps benefit dollars, or AmeriCorps, what do you call them, awards. So yes, we realize that there are many barriers to our programming, that it's expensive to come here, and that it's a luxury to be able to take time off to come here. So we're working hard to find ways to lower those thresholds of entry. And Eli also asked, what do you see as specific to reducing costs to make housing more affordable, taking into consideration the extra upfront cost of building sustainably? Is it limiting square footage, owner builders? Both of those for sure. Some of the slides you saw in the show were about reducing the amount of size needed. The average house has just ballooned like crazy, and it's not sustainable from a price point or for the planet, for the amount of materials that have to go into projects. So limiting square footage is critical. I think the more use of some of these high-tech and, right now they're sort of niche materials that are some of the most sustainable building materials, the more we use them, hopefully, possibly, the more producers of those materials there will be, which will make the cost of them drop. There are companies that are, like certain products that are only available in Europe, for example. There are companies in places like Maine that are trying to reuse factory paper mills to turn them into wood fiber insulation, producing manufacturing facilities, for example, which would reduce the cost just because we're not having to buy them from Germany, but we're able to buy them from Maine instead. Plus it reuses an old mill and gives business to a town that lost its business. Owner builders, yes, absolutely. We definitely believe in DIY projects, coming to Yestermorrow, learning how to design and build your own home, and then being able to leave and go do it yourself. You're definitely going to save. General contracting yourself, doing the work yourself, there are going to be ways to save there, absolutely. And then I think,
your real product here?
yeah,
I mean,
that you can leave here and become an owner builder.
Half the cost of a house is labor.
Yep,
And if you train people to do the labor,
exactly.
then they can, that's the real, it seems like that's the real product.
That's it.
Seems like making a house or trying to sell affordable houses is a mission creep or something like that, seems to me. And training people to learn how to do electric, plumbing, carpentry, finish stuff, and things like that is what Yestermorrow is built on.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the real. It seems like that's the real product here.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying about mission creep, and we've talked a lot about that in the strategic planning committee meetings, because we don't want to become an affordable housing developer that becomes a landlord that is just, putting as many products out into the world as possible. The product wants to be the owner builders, the people who learn how to do it themselves or learn how to be part of the process. I think where the little bit of gray area between those two things that we find important is when the projects have purpose and legitimacy, then they're going to be even a better teaching tool than if we are, just getting the shell of a building done and then handing it over to somebody else to finish and produce. I'm not saying we're going to be building 20 units a year. I'm hoping for 3 in the next few years, a spring project, a summer project, and a fall semester project. So we're not about, just a manufacturing entity. It is more about teaching and having the teaching be a fulfilling process where they see the whole process and that they can be part of including the delivery of the final project.
It seems like the flip side of that would be a better direction. Have somebody else make a shell, and then you guys come in and self-help seems like an ideal fit with Yestermorrow.
Well, and
Somebody
see,
else makes the exterior shell, you come in and you outfit the whole place because you know how to do all this cool stuff.
which is why we want the design build group to help us potentially start projects so that some of our students can come in and finish the projects, and then they learn, tiling or floor finishing or sheetrocking. But even if they couldn't have been here for 4 months ahead of time to do the framing also. But I think I could see us getting there. I'd also love to see us getting to the ability to renovate and do deep energy retrofits to other people's projects. But I think for right now, the idea of producing a few different projects here on campus, soup to nuts, see how all that goes, whether it's by one class or a couple of classes put together, that'll be our goal to start. And then the flip side might end up being the sweet spot.
Kind of following up on Jim's question about labor and trade, like that's obviously a huge part of the problem in Vermont, regardless. And so that's also why like the missing middle home types aren't being built, because it's not an economy of scale, and it just doesn't make sense, you know, for many contractors to work at that scale. And so the optimistic thing I see is creating, you know, many skilled people who could then, you know, go out and build.
This is a Zoom mic, I just
I
realized.
use both.
That's why I have two.
I'm kind of wondering two parts, like how many students are in Vermont that come to Yestermorrow, and then could they feed into some kind of like greater pipeline that then stay in Vermont and like keep building the missing middle home types, or become, you know, more of like a sustainable trade pipeline into the future?
Amy, that's a great question. And I think it gets to the heart of another purpose of our design build group is our students can stay and then become people who are learning and apprenticing through our design build group to even get better and better. We tend to get a lot of students or interns or apprentices or TAs who want to stay and want to do more here on campus and want to learn more technique and also want to get further along in a building and understand the whole process than we're currently able to accommodate. And so our hope is that, first of all, if we have some housing units for them to live in and stay, as well as projects for them to work on, possibly even a firm for them to work in, that yes, people would stick around, stay in Vermont, add to the labor pool, and then also be working on the housing shortage. As far as the number of people who come from Vermont, I'm going to let Chrissy answer that question because I'm never sure of our demographics. If we have it, do we know? Would we say?
I feel a little bit on the spot here.
Sorry.
Because I don't know exactly.
I know.
I think it's somewhere half.
It's about half.
Oh, it's about half. You should have asked Sarah.
About half of our students come from Vermont.
I would say half from Vermont, another like 25% from Greater New England, and then the rest from.
Half from Vermont, 25% more from Greater New England, and the rest, the other 25% from farther away. Yeah, so quite a few from the state. Thank you, Sarah and Chrissy. Sorry to put you on the spot, both of you. Drew? Yep.
Some of my questions were answered earlier, but I guess I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the design build group and what the goals of that are potentially outside of the community development here. And it sounds like potentially advancing projects that Yestermorrow is already interested in taking part in, rather than becoming a developer. And how do you associate those risks with the program and make sure that that doesn't end up being the case?
Thanks. Yeah, the goals really of the design build group would be, as I said, to be able to manage the project and the client relationship in the beginning, and then also to basically sub in different classes or maybe a semester-long class to build the project, and then help with project delivery, final punch list, details, things like that. But then almost more importantly, or as important, would be a funnel for our semester students and our interns and TAs to be able to go work in that firm and give them more understanding and knowledge building through hands-on apprenticeship type work. And then what was the last part of your question?
You see the risk of essentially becoming a developer if
Yes.
If this design build firm is created, and how do you ensure that the projects that are to be managed by this firm don't exceed your vision?
I'm hoping that we won't creep toward, speaking of creep toward developer status. we may be creeping toward builder status, but I definitely don't want to head in a developer direction yet. I think the scale we're going to be working on for the foreseeable future is going to keep us in a scale that won't head toward developer type. And I think it'll be really depend on a judicious use of partnerships and working with people who are better equipped to do that kind of project.
So the goal is to essentially house people outside of the direct mission of Yestermorrow. You mentioned that the only individuals that could be housed through the zoning you guys possess is...
People for our mission, people who serve the school,
But
yeah.
You're also hoping to house individuals slightly outside of that spectrum?
I'm hoping to be able to produce units that someone can take to house people. I don't think Yestermorrow will be getting into the business of housing the general public.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Or there are a few online, but Jim. I guess I can stop.
Sorry, since another great expense is the infrastructure necessary to do housing, I haven't heard you use the word multifamily the whole time. I'm wondering why not, because that seems like a gigantic step forward in affordability.
I did say multifamily a couple of times, duplexes, triplexes. I see us heading in that direction. I would love for us to be able to. I think if we're building things on campus, we'll have to think modularly, the way shipping container, there was an image that was not from a project of ours that was multiple shipping containers, or whatever shape can go down the road is not going to be as suited to multifamily unless you start assembling them together. But yeah, I would love to be able to head in the direction of a Dimetrodon type scale if we could produce something like that, or even, yeah, a duplex or a triplex I think would be an important thing for us to be involved with.
It seems like the model of building some housing in the backyard here for your students and your faculty is a great way to start. But I think that part of the affordability, like Jim says, is this multifamily thing. And that's always been a trick, especially, I mean, I think it's a trick everywhere, but in Vermont, where when you're over 2 units, you have a different code that you have to comply with. And if it's 3 or more units, I mean, is a dormitory, that's dormitory and housing, a good model? Because for Yestermorrow to spend its design capital and some of its investment capital on actually figuring out some forms of multifamily that could fit in Vermont and be the right scale, that I think would be great. I mean, not necessarily go back to the 70s.
No, I don't mean recreate the Dimetrodon, but yeah, I think absolutely, but I think it'll depend on who we partner with and who is actually handling that down the road, the developer itself, yeah. I think I'm going to stop the slideshow because we don't need that. There are a few more online, I
A
think.
few more questions online.
Yeah.
So, Britton, if you just want to read those out. I think first.
Specifications for the around 100 square foot high performance house example. I should hand that over to Matt because Mac was responsible for that. But I know we got, it helped because we got windows at a deep discount from a triple glazed window manufacturer. We got some flooring donated. It did require quite a few items to be donated and student labor. So without the labor in the equation and with I also say that was just the building itself. There were no site costs. It didn't include the cost of the foundation or any utilities. We did put in electrical and plumbing into the building itself, but it was made here on campus and then delivered to its site later. So the cost I'm saying is just what we spent here on campus. So that probably explains quite a bit of it. Can you comment on how this might affect the program for identifying locations in the local area for projects? As someone who wants to build and rent an ADU, incredibly tight labor market makes it difficult to get started. So if the story is that there is a new source of labor for pre-designed projects that already have willing landowners, this could make a great impact in the community. I would be really open to accepting a standard design, particularly if it was one that for putting in Warren on the map, putting Warren on the map for housing design. Yeah, that's, thank you, Macon and Phillips. That's the idea, is that potentially we'll have a few units that we will be able to replicate, and maybe to Jim and Ellen's point, maybe even come up with a scheme that we're able to produce that's multifamily, maybe even just a duplex unit. But that would be the goal. And then the last question is, are these sessions recorded? They sure are. Yeah, thanks to Mad River Valley TV for helping. And you can find them on YouTube also, where they're live streamed and recorded for later. They're not live streamed on YouTube. They're live streamed on Facebook. Not live streamed. Live streamed on Zoom, right, of course. We used to do them on Facebook and YouTube, I thought. Anyway, yes, they're on YouTube, and thanks to Mad River Valley TV. And I think that's it. All right, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it.